the executive session, now we have to return to public session. Okay, I got you.
Okay. I need a motion to return to public session. Audra, John, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have two special recognitions this evening. One is Irving Tissue, who donated 80 cases of paper towels. Very nice.
Thank you.
We thank Irving for that. And Burgoyne Quality Hardware and Lumber, donation of building materials to the technology classroom, who will be constructing a bed for a student in need.
Quite
Very
awesome.
nice.
Great. Thank you very much.
If you don't mind, I'd like to interject on, and thank Ryan Herman. He got the ball rolling to make the beds and went to the hardware store and got the donation.
Super.
So
Very
thank you,
sweet.
Ryan.
Okay, community comments, we do have one, right? That's just the one?
Yes.
Okay. The public comment period not to exceed 30 minutes each shall be provided at each business meeting. In an effort to provide an opportunity for all interested speakers, all speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes during the public comment period. Community members who wish to address the board are requested to complete the speaker request form submitted to the clerk of the board prior to the meeting. Comments regarding agenda items will be taken first. Speakers are reminded of the 3-minute time limit. Should the 30-minute time limit expire, additional written comments may be taken prior to the meeting's adjournment. Member of the board or the superintendent will respond that the board received and reviewed the comments. When members of the public speak to the board, they shall state their name, address, the name of the organization, if any, which they represent, and the agenda item they wish to comment on. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed at public sessions of the board. The board will not permit interruptions, slanders, remarks, or name calling by speakers or the audience. We take public comment very seriously, and careful notes will be taken. However, the board generally does not respond while the meeting is in public session. And we have Megan Munoz.
Hi.
Hello.
Just stand here and talk,
You
it's
can-
fine.
Sure, wherever you
Sure.
want.
I was just coming to follow up because at the last board meeting, I presented asking about my daughter who's in private school playing on the basketball team, and I never received a follow-up. I did get the message from the principal the following morning. I didn't respond only because I was waiting to hear back, like you said, from the board. So I'm just curious as to where that stands and why I didn't get a response.
I'll answer that quick. I can't remember if it was Tom or myself who was supposed to respond to you.
I believe it was just anybody who could get me and help me gear my daughter towards, just anybody on the board or
Let me have, President Roche isn't here tonight.
let's see.
So, can I just would it be okay if you would just share your phone number with me?
Oh,
And I'll
absolutely.
give him a call tomorrow,
Yep.
and then figure out which one was supposed to respond to you, and then we'll get that done. Sorry about that.
Do we have whether my daughter can play or not?
I'm gonna have to review that with him. I can't remember how that went. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, next we have a presentation on our special education audit. Colleen, you Yep.
Right up in front is good.
Hit the light.
Did you have a PowerPoint? You did have a PowerPoint,
I
right?
did.
That you gave to Greg?
Yeah, I gave it to her. You have it? I actually wasn't.
Oh, you didn't get it?
Yeah, I thought she said,
I
you
said
said it to Greg, right?
I shared it with
To
you.
me, to my Fort Edward email? Okay, I'm sorry, it was not.
Are we able to project that up there?
Yes.
Awesome.
What?
While would it be okay, I'll just,
Go ahead.
let's see, we have this special education.
Bless you.
You want to fill that time with my report?
Sure.
What is your last name?
Is that okay? All right. Because I don't have a lot today, so. So for my report, staff vacancies, We still have our Spanish opening. We're hoping to recruit that again in May. Hopefully we'll get some new college applicants, but thus far, we have not gotten one applicant for that position. Speech therapist, that's been posted, correct, Mrs. Ferguson?
Yes, it has.
And do you remember when the due dates of that is?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm thinking the 22nd.
Okay. And I believe we haven't
Actually, it
gotten,
might be the 15th.
I think it's the 15th as well, because I believe it expires the same time as the directors.
Yes, those two are the 15th, the cleaners is the 22nd, that's, sorry.
So speech therapist due the 15th, which is next Friday, so I'll provide you an update on that in my next board report to you next week. Director of Pupil Services, that is also next week. And we already have 2 or 3 applicants for that. So that's a positive thing. Capital project work, we're still tweaking the scope of work on that. We had a meeting the other day, John was a part of that. I just got the items for priority 1 and we're up to 17.4 million for the project at this point. So we will have some decisions to make. Either we really want to chop and slash, or we can work with Chris and possibly raise the amount of the capital project we want to do. So we are going to have to, work on it. Yeah. The rebranding and the capital project marketing. I'll be sending emails to 2 of the companies this coming week and set up meetings. My goal is to finalize the selection and place a recommendation before the board in January. Athletics, we did create a dual sport contract, as many of our winter sport athletes are doing 2 sports. And I'm sure Erin maybe has that in report or can comment on that in her report, if you don't mind. The athletic report that we'll get after Colleen's will probably include the 2-item discussions as we're looking for some policy change. One is tardy to school for our athletes, and we'll get into that more when we get to that portion of the meeting, but I want to give you a heads up. And students signing out from away games. We want to talk about that a little bit for a possible change. Distance learning lab upgrades. Our distance learning lab will get a bit of a facelift next week. Classes for that week will be redirected into our library. I think all those involved, especially Carrie Lynn Smith, who's the TA to that room. And we have put 2 half-day superintendent's conference days in the books coming up. So one will be February 16th. Students will be dismissed at 11:15 a.m. and we'll have a PM conference day. And then the other one is March 28th. And those are the days before those week-long breaks. So we worked with FIDA to get those in the books. And that completes my report. Any questions? Thank you. Mrs. Ulrich, are you ready?
I am, Dr. Denali.
All righty. Before Mrs. Ulrich gets started, Mrs. Ulrich, as you know, we contracted out to do an audit of our special education department and systems and procedures. She will tell you how many hours she put in, but Colleen has an extensive background. I worked with her for over a decade in my former placement, and then she retired from there and did some work with CASDA and has been interim director in many districts, has a wealth of knowledge, and gave us a very comprehensive report that she will present tonight. So before you get started though, Mrs. York, thank you for all the work you did for us
Thank you.
and all the comprehensive report you provided.
So yes, everybody got the report. So I am not going to go over 33 pages of it. So,
That was Ella's first question. by the way.
so thank you for having me come. I truly enjoy, when I retired from Gloversville, I said I want to go help people. So for 8 years, that's what I've been doing. I've been going around all New York State helping do special ed program reviews, and I think I've just completed my 22nd one. So I like going around and meeting people and seeing where I can help. What I did is I did prepare a PowerPoint. It's a snapshot, so I'll just pick out key points of the report. I know you got the report, I think, over the weekend, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it. You may have questions, so I can answer those while I'm here tonight. But We can go ahead.
They did their homework, Mrs. York.
Good, and you have questions? Perfect. So the whole purpose of the review, Dr. Demales asked me to come check. He said, I really want you to pay attention and look at processes, procedures, program effectiveness of the student support services, particularly special ed. So I focused in on that. But what I find is when you're starting to look at special education and the services and the programs, I have to go back and look at what happened before they became special ed. What are all those early intervention pieces? So I always go back and say, is that working before we even get to special ed? So a lot of that came into the report that you'll see under teaching and learning. That's where I focus in on to see if we can prevent students from ever entering special ed. So when I was here, in the report you saw, I think I visited 16 classrooms. I interviewed almost 40 of the staff members. And what I found is there was a lot of support from the staff. I know as board members you were on board with having me do this. So there was a great deal of support from people saying, we're so glad you're here, and they really wanted to share. They were honest. I actually had some folks that were so passionate about it, they began to cry. So they really shared their feelings. And I said, nothing's wrong, I just need to hear from everyone. Very caring staff. You have teachers that go above and beyond as far as helping students and doing what needs to be done, taking care of them. So that was very nice to see. And the Positivity Project, I heard great things about that from staff. They really enjoyed that. You know, and I would ask the staff, so what are your strengths in Fort Edward? Without a doubt, everybody said the Positivity Project. So that was very nice to hear that they were all on board with that. Okay. Concerns, though. I also asked staff, what are your concerns? So that front page in your report where it says strengths and areas of concerns, those weren't mine. Those were the staff in-house that reported that. The administrators and teachers reported it, not me, okay? So we heard that there was an absence of well-known district goals, processes, and procedures so that people knew what direction Fort Edward was headed in. I did hear that we were just coming out of annexation, and I just felt some raw emotion from that. So staff were just, they were like, we're not sinking anymore. We're here, but we don't know what we're supposed to be doing now. We need some direction. We need some guidelines. So I heard that. There's a lack of communication, some fractured relationships. I think a lot has to do with the turnover of the administrators for years. And I think it's just we have some brand new administrators now. I think they were still thinking back what it was like prior to that. So I heard a lot of that. No clearly defined continuum of special ed services. How do I say this? There are pockets of programs and services, but they weren't K-12. They existed a little bit in the elementary, and then there might be some in 7th and 8th grade, but nothing in the high school. So they were like scattered all through the district. And then this was a big one that I saw, that there's just a lack of a data-driven culture in Fort Edward. I had staff say, if you say data one more time, I think we're going to throw up. That they just keep hearing the word data, data, data. And I said, but that's what we're all about. That's what drives our schools. That's how we're all held accountable. So I don't know if they know how to gather data or what to gather. And once they have it, what do you do with it? So I think that was a concern I found out after the fact, but teachers themselves spoke up about that. Okay. There were 7 pages of data analysis findings in your report, and I just picked out just a few that I think were important to see. And the first one's, while the district's enrollment continues to decline, the classification rate is going up. And just the recent enrollment, 22-23, it decreased from 406 to 368, but the classification rate increased to 19%. And I just got the beds data is also in there, which you may not know what that is, but this year's classification rate is 22%. So it's still going up. During 2021, the 4-year graduation rate in August was 72% for all students. Didn't quite make the state target. And the graduation rate for students with disabilities was 60%. 3 out of 5 students. 60% doesn't sound bad, but I still think of those 2 other students that didn't graduate. Who are they? What can we do to help them out? And then during 21-22, only 32.4% of students received services for the majority of the day in general ed classes. There was a whole least restrictive environment chart there, but what that means is the state wants almost 60% of your population to spend the majority of their day in general ed classes, 80% of their day, and only 32% were there. The rest are in special classes or self-contained classes or out in BOCES and private schools. So that's a little low. During 21-22, and let me just say, you're saying 21-22, we're like 3 years away, but that's some of the most recent data that you get from the state ed website. Okay. During that year, 21.6% of students with disabilities received services outside of Fort Edward. The state targets 5% or less. And I think that's one of the reasons that your district was identified and targeted, correct? Because too many children are being placed outside of Fort Edward. And dropout rate for all students during 21-22 is 7% as compared to 5%. I took a look at your ELA and math assessments. There's still a preponderance that the majority of all your students are scoring at level 1 and 2, which is not meeting proficiency. We want them at 3s and 4s. Again, for the past 3 years, Fort Edward students have been below the New York State scores in both ELA and math. The ELA proficiency rate for students in grades 3 through 8 has continually declined for the past 3 years. Math has gone up a little bit for 3 years. And then, of course, there's a gap between the proficiency of students with disabilities and that of gen ed. And we would expect that because they are struggling students, but we don't want the gap to be so far that we can't begin to close it. I left data, then I came in and took a look at programs and services, and then your processes and procedures. So the district does offer related services in the district: resource room, direct consultant teacher, and 12-1-1 special class programs. But they are not vertically aligned or available in K-12. Resource room appears to be K-12. Direct consultant teachers only offered in 7th and 8th grade. And your 12-1-1 classes are at the elementary level. So there's pockets, we're missing pieces. There appears to be limited types of special ed programs and services for students pursuing a diploma in grades 9 through 12 other than resource room. That concerned me a little bit because once the students got to 9th grade, the only service they could access was a resource room teacher, and then TAs would be provided in, but there was nothing else. So I just wanted to highlight that. I'm not sure if that could be a reason some of our students are dropping out because they're not getting the support. That's something you'd have to take a look at and look at individual students and maybe go back and see what happened. Maybe we're not providing them enough support, I'm not sure. But I think some of those students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 need perhaps some additional support besides just a resource room. And again, little to no remedial supports are available to secondary level students. There is a lack of communication and well-known written processes, procedures, and protocols within the buildings or district-wide for folks to know what they're supposed to do as far as instructional support teams, the multi-tiered system of services, special ed procedures. I know Joyce, in the report I did show that there are some reports that were developed this year. AIS is in there. There's a career counseling plan in there, so she's beginning to do it. There was a TA handbook that's in there. So those were developed this year. We're still missing some for staff to know exactly what's the process for getting services, how do we go about doing it. There's a lack of criteria for the delivery of services. How do students get in for supports? How do they leave supports? And we have to use data to do that. And so I think a lot of it's based on our feelings and emotion, but we need to use data. Okay. This was hard for me to write, but Dr. DeMalley said, Colleen, say it the way it is. So I did. I didn't, as I talked to all the faculty and the administrators, I think I said to the three administrators, there's almost a sense of trauma here that they made it through the annex. They made it through that, and now they're just, it's almost like they were traumatized from that. And now they're just happy to be here, and they love their children. But when it came to talking about the data and the 3 through 8 tests, and folks said, we don't care about that stuff. It's just not, we don't even believe in it. Not everybody, but a large majority, that we just care about our children. We're here to help them. I said, okay. So I don't think they see the urgency if they were to look at the data that we see, 3 through 8 testing or graduation rate. So that, I think that's something that maybe somehow sharing with them that we've got to set ourselves on fire to get going a little bit. Concerns still exist with both ELA and math curriculum. Again, the students more than half aren't meeting proficiency. There's a lack of appropriate and effective district-wide supports for students prior to referral to special ed. And again, that's that AIS, the RTI, those processes and procedures, they're just getting up and running. So it's in an infancy stage, and so that's good. I want to applaud, Erin and Joyce for trying to get that up and running. But we still have to keep going at it. Okay. Data does not appear to be used on a consistent basis as a means to improve the teaching and learning of students. Again, we have the iReady 3 times a year, and I know there is some other assessments that are given for benchmarking. There is progress monitoring. I'm not sure if it's being used with fidelity. I don't know if people are taking it seriously. Some are, some aren't. But it's not being done consistently to move children in and out of AIS. And again, staff are resistant to the data collection process or unsure what to do with it. And I have more of a feeling that they just don't know how. And so I think professional development is needed there. So as a result, struggling students are often referred to special ed as the only game in town. They're like, we don't know what else to do. We need to refer them to special ed. And that could be another reason, perhaps, why the classification rate's going up. I did visit 16 classrooms, and I wrote all my notes, and I tallied them up, and a little more than half the classrooms that I visited, the teacher was doing all the work. Up in front of the class, very animated, doing everything, writing the notes, and the students really weren't required to do much of anything. I saw students with heads down, I saw some sleeping. Somehow we've got to figure out, teacher, you're working very hard, let's put it back in the hands of the children, having them working in collaborative learning groups, up and moving around. But I think that there was little differentiation, a lot of teacher up talking to a whole group. So we've got to find ways to engage them in their own learning. So I had several pages of recommendations. I just picked out a couple key ones here that somehow I think we need to embrace that. We've got a sense of urgency here in Fort Edward. We really need to start looking at all that longitudinal data and say, we want to be improving, not declining. We've got to start really helping staff embrace data so that we can use it to provide services, even in their own classrooms, using data for those tier 1 interventions. Improve communication regarding processes and procedures. And then just take a look at the staffing patterns. Is there any way we can realign them and use them differently, just so we can help? I did give some recommendations. Again, what I suggest to you, they're outside the box thinking of me, having visited so many programs, and some of them you can perhaps do, some you may not be able to do, but I did want to just throw out ideas for you. What else we got? Is that it? Oh, and then I'm thinking when you're looking at, I think you need to work on a professional development plan in the future. And as you do that, these are some of the things that teachers actually told me. They'd like some more professional development. Some of them are their ideas and others are the ones that I saw. As simple as disability awareness. I'm not sure they even understand, an autistic child can be in a gen ed classroom. They behave differently. So what are some of the ways you can work with them? So there's a whole list, okay? And then for my PowerPoint, I just wanted to summarize and say that you have some great folks here. You have an opportunity to develop a collaborative team of administrators and teachers that can focus on improving achievement for students. They have to have access to a rigorous curriculum using data. And again, the issues faced by Fort Edward aren't really just special ed. They're teaching and learning practices for all kids. I actually, when I was director, had a special ed review done. And the ladies that did it kept saying, special ed is the canary in the coal mine. Remember hearing those? Yeah, if you can reach those special ed students, then you're going to help all children. So if you think about what it needs to be done for those struggling students, the rest will benefit and come right along. So that was just my overview, and I do appreciate you having me here, and the staff were wonderful. They were really very accommodating. And so, what questions might you have?
Yeah, I got one. Could you explain more, like, why about these least restrictive environment state percentage goals? Why would a classroom teacher care about the state goals for each category of student?
Which goal? Tell me which. Can you tell me
So,
what page
yeah,
you're on?
I'm on page 10.
Is that the least restrictive environment?
Yes. Yep.
So, I think it's important for teachers to know about that, because this is the special ed data profile that every school district has. It's on the state ed website. They set a target, and in the red, if it was in red, it means you didn't meet the state target. But teachers need to be aware that we have way too many Fort Edward children that are being placed outside of our district. They're still our children, and they still, we are still.
But according to who? We have too many
New York State Education Department.
Okay.
Every school district has to submit data every year. I think on Bedsday, a lot of it comes from there. So this is all across New York State. It's comparing every school district.
And tell me if I'm out of bounds.
No.
I think it's important for them to know that number, because, when we were working in Gloversville, we had how many special ed kids?
700.
700. So when the state says, oh, you have 20% or more classified, in a place like Gloversville, if I'm in my regular classroom, what's 1 or 2 kids more gonna be in that raw number of 20%? But here at Fort Edward, I think it's very important, because if I'm in a regular ed classroom and I'm having those issues, and I'm like, okay, send those 2 kids out. Now those 2 kids goes out, that's 8% on top of our population. We just increased 8% of our population going out into placement, which again, I think it's important for the teachers to know that, and I think it's important for us as a board, because, the when people look to move into Fort Edward, the first thing they're gonna look at is gonna be our state report card and those things.
And all those students that are being placed out, they're very costly. They cost a lot of
A
money.
lot of money.
Very, and I remember, actually, and I would do the stack, it's a form you have to fill out for your high cost reimbursement, and I remember I actually shared with some teachers that wanted to send children to a BOCES 612. I said, do you know the cost of that program's $90,000? They're like, what? Like, that's $90,000.
Yeah.
And I said, we just have to be very careful, because when we do that, that means that's a teacher in-house that we can't have. So it made them think and be a little more careful about some of wanting to send children out.
I think it makes the investment of RTI, MTSS, and those other things much more plausible.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it real, like, geez, I really gotta try this first. I don't know, does that make sense?
Let me reframe it from the classroom teacher's perspective. They're gonna advocate for the best program, classroom, class size, school for the student. So in the back of their head, are they supposed to say, we're at 61%, better not make, like, is that supposed to go into the decision-making process?
I would say no,
Or what?
but I think it advocates for a person like Aaron and a person in the director's chair to be like, Tim, can you look at this a little deeper? Can you please try this?
Tried everything.
Can you please, have you tried this? It kind of puts a little rationale on top of, hey, have you really emptied the tank on trying to get this kid to understand the material?
I think for some, before sending out, a lot of what will help is training. A lot of times we send out behavior kits. That is majority of what was sent out before for Fort Edward, was we sent out a lot of behavior kits. But I think a lot of times when you get a lot of training in de-escalation, TCI training, you tend to know how to deal with them a little bit better. Maybe not necessarily in a gen ed classroom, but if we have a little better placement or support staff in the room, we don't necessarily have to always send them out of district, and we can kind of save that. But I think training staff-wise and things like that definitely helps, and I think that'll help our numbers in that way too. But a lot of times, I think training helps with some of that.
And I guess on the flip side of it, as a parent, you know, I can remember when, you know, our daughter at one time needed AIS. And I guess I'm a proud parent, and I was like, why? What's gone on? Like, really? Like, what have you done to this point to make sure that she needs that? Because I don't want my child labeled like that. Some people are like that. So, you know, I think that we should be able to come to the table knowing that we've emptied the tank and this is where it has to go. So on top of, let's go, I got a little off the rails. On top of your question of, do the teachers need to know that data? I would say yes, but the ripple effects of knowing that data can be important for a parent, an administrator in our community. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not the multiply disabled child that needs to go out, or the severely autistic that's nonverbal. Those, and you have a lot of those, I'm gonna be honest, but you might have 2 or 3 out there that really could be serviced in home. So.
But the chart has multiple tiers, like this would cover a referral for a 12-1 class as well, so like those percentages, I still don't understand why. I understand your perspective
And
on
they may not,
our district.
they
Our
may
district
not
is certainly
understand the
expensive,
chart,
but-
yeah. They may not understand it, or it's just a target that the state
Okay.
sets, I
Okay.
guess.
Great.
And you are a small district, and I wanna be fair to say, just 1 or 2 children can change the
Yeah,
numbers.
it's a huge percentage.
I recognize that.
I feel like that's always the excuse about the data that we're provided. It's always like, oh, well, 1 or 2 could skew the results. So how do we communicate to the teaching staff to trust this data, but not that other data? You know, like, the report says we need to convince the teachers to trust data, yet the report is filled with data that has little caveats like that, where it's like, oh, but 1 or 2% is one student.
Well, it doesn't mean it's
See,
I say that to you, but state ed doesn't care how big or small you are. They're their numbers.
No,
State-
separate topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, disregarding the chart.
And
Yes.
that, these numbers will get you on a list or they get you off a list.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think the most important thing, as you were saying, is, you do whatever you can to keep that child, in the homeschool, because this is where their friends are, this is where their community is, this is probably where they feel more comfortable. If we can provide the correct instruction and the correct methods to keep that child at the homeschool, the better off in the long run that young girl or boy is going to be. It's when you send them out of district without exhausting all of your resources, that's when they tend to get a little lost.
And we also don't know what's being taught. I mean, there's some wonderful programs out there, but we're not there to know what's going on either. So. What else?
Any other questions? We thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having
Thank you
me.
so much.
Budget, board committee reports, budget, finance, and audit committee met tonight. It was Chris and I. Anyways, he provided us with some things that they came up with when he met with the administrators and the supervisors. Seems to be well ahead of previous years and recommendations and things we'll be looking at. We're looking at different changes in professional development, curriculum development, some of the things we heard about tonight. Looking at, salaries, obviously, program adjustments that might need to be made, and a few other items there. And there is, in the budget calendar already, a meeting scheduled for January 8th, which will involve staffing, estimated salaries and benefits, special educations, BOCES services, debt service, and inter-fund transfers. Anything else you want to add to that? Okay. Personal grievance and negotiations committee, you wanted to meet in January, right?
Yes, the FES contract is up at the end of the year. So we will need to, I'm meeting with Chris and Rachel this month, I think next week sometime. And once we get our numbers together, if you have things that you would want, those of you that are on the committee, please email me so I can get those. Maybe we can expedite this process. But Casey will be in touch with you in the next few days to set up a meeting in January.
Okay, policy review committee, need to schedule a meeting.
Yes, we do. We have several new policies
And a policy audit.
in the policy on it, yeah. So for example, I believe there were a couple policies that were on books. Physical restraint and timeout,
And workplace violence.
workplace violence. Thank you. So she'll be in touch with you and for that one too.
The athletic committee met on the 6th, and notes were included in our packets. Does anybody want to report on that further, or questions? Yeah?
Anybody have any questions?
I was there.
You were there. So right now, the JV and varsity basketball coaching staff is full. Seem to be having a pretty good year, so that's always a good thing.
Just beat Hartford.
Yep, which is always a good thing. Hoping to keep the boys varsity coach as the program coach, and that's very important as a program to build that team, build the program. That's what it's all about. The students seem to like him a lot. I think he's kind of a younger guy and maybe relate more. And then just judging by other places he's been involved in youth sports and at the high school level in some different places, and we've heard nothing but good things about Coach Stevens. So, excuse me. Not certain about the JV coach. We'd like him to stick around, but we're not quite certain if he's going to or not. But that continuity would be nice in the program. With some staff retiring, hoping to hire staff who will be able to wear many hats and fill coaching shoes. So Aaron's gonna be the varsity football.
Go, Aaron.
So we would like, the specifically staff, we'd like to get some portions of the staff a little more involved in the athletic process. Specifically, well, I don't want to get specific, but certain staff members. The merger with Hudson Falls, we'd like to dig in with Hudson Falls to look at maybe some other avenues that kids could maybe get involved in some sports that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. We couldn't do the swimming and indoor track because certain sports, depending on the numbers, that bumps them up a class, and to go from a class C or B to an A is just disastrous a lot of times. And so you can't blame them for that. Right now we have soccer, golf, and cross country merged with Argyle. We had 3 kids on the soccer team. They had a great year this year. 0 kids on the cross country team. And golf is more our sport, and Argyle sends us a few kids. But we had always have a great season in golf. And then we looked at, should certain things be merged with Hudson Falls, like football already is, and certain other sports, but it's closer, it's easier for the kids to get there. The AD at Hudson Falls has been great to work with. They're very open to just about anything that we ask. And they think a lot of our kids, and they think of our kids as being on their team and not just the Fort Edward kids coming in. So that's really nice. We'd like to do some polling, maybe informally, of the kids, maybe in gym class or study halls or walking through the halls, of what kind of sports they're interested in. Hey, if you could play any sport, what would you do? Or if you had the opportunity to play a sport and you really weren't that familiar with it, but what would you like to do? Some of these kids might go, my dad golfs, I never have, but I'd be willing to try it, and bang, there you go. So that's an opportunity for us to know our kids better and to really kind of point them in an area where they would maybe excel, you never know. Taylor Boucher noted she's worried if we offer too many sports options, it'll take players away. Field teams, the spread is too thin. That was a good point. We don't ever want to do that with a small population. That is always the issue. But on the flip side of that, if there's a kid that's not playing any sports and something is offered to him or her, and they decide to try it, anything we can do to help the kids do something extracurricular, get involved, get moving, and maybe open up an interest that they really didn't realize that they had available to them. Merger with softball with Hartford is good to go. I'm not going to bore you with everything here, I'm sorry, but Rich, I'd like to hand it over to you if you wanted to talk about the tardiness issue.
Yes, sir. So the current policy for athletes, student athletes and tardy is they have to be here a full day. So basically you cannot be 1 minute late, or you will not, and if you are, you will not be able to practice or play if there's a game. So I believe, John, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the athletic committee feels that was a little too harsh. There should be some flexibility in that.
That is correct.
That is correct.
So the recommendations to the entire board that we wanted to present are, number 1, status quo. It stays the way the policy reads. Number 2, the student would be able to come in with a legal tardy as related to the student code of conduct, which would include a parent note, before 8:51, which is the end of first period. With the caveat that they would also get 3 free tardies without a parent note, but on the 4th, 5th, and consecutive ones, they would be held from practice or play. And then the third option is the same caveats and rules, but we would extend it, instead of the end of first period, we would move it to the end of second period. Those were the three options. Just to give you, we did do some research, if I can find it.
It's right in there.
It's in there, it's in the notes.
Oh, it is?
Mhm.
Go ahead and read it out.
So we did some research with other schools. I say we, it really wasn't me.
You can say we, I'm okay with it.
So other schools' policies, Lake George, they need to be in attendance 7 to 9 periods unless they have a legal excuse note. Fort Ann, in school by 10 a.m. or they need a doctor's note. Salem must be in school by 9 a.m. Whitehall by 8:30 a.m. Later is allowed with a valid note. Hartford must be in school by 10. Warrensburg must be in school before 11. North Warren, expected to be at school on time. If they are tardy, they need to have a legal excuse in order to participate that day. Hadley, in school by 10. Bolton, noon. Stillwater, kids can be late but need a note, they didn't give a time. Same with Indian Lake. North Warren is the same as we are, no leeway at all, but they are, as we are, discussing it. And Warrensburg must be in school by 11. So that led us into a pretty lengthy discussion on what is, the fair and equitable thing to do. Kids are gonna get woken up late, gonna, leave the house late, so, kids are gonna be tardy. It's not a busing district, they're not missing the bus, they're actually walking to school for the most part in high school, and so we felt that, one of these three, we should really take a harder look at. And I know, Aaron, your current position is no leeway, basically.
That's what we're dealing with now,
Right.
that's not the
But we
position
still
I
want to
love,
maintain.
but that's where I am.
We still want to maintain that continuity with the student code of conduct as well. There's no favoritism because they're an athlete, but on the other hand, there's no serious repercussion outside of what the non-athletic or non-extracurricular student would have. So we felt between us, and I don't know if you want to chime in on this, one of the two options, we felt pretty strongly that it would be fair.
What are the two again?
Either come in by the end of first period, which is 8:51, or the end of second period, which is 10:19. Anything past that, with a student, with a note from either a parent, a doctor, or some other legal excuse, if it happens over 3 times unexcused, then they're done for at the very minimum that day.
Yeah.
Who's got time to keep track of all that?
It goes in the
Keys.
computer.
No, well, actually, yeah, go ahead.
We actually have a spreadsheet set up, so when students come in late, Toby knows who's an athlete, so they're all listed on the spreadsheet. So if a student comes in late who's an athlete, she puts it into the spreadsheet already, that they're late, or that they're absent, or that they didn't participate in PE. So the spreadsheet already exists, so that would be easy monitoring.
Right. I know the overall feeling at our meeting is to give the kids some grace. I mean, they are needing to get to school. They do need to have some accountability. We did want to give them, the 3 strikes, kind of, you need to have a parent note after the 3, but getting here, 1 minute and you're kind of out for the day is, a little extreme and harsh.
Sometimes it's not even the kids.
It's, yeah, exactly.
Parents are driving
And that
you to
was
school,
something
and,
that we
and so you're
discussed.
getting because, dad to get home from work on time and bring you to school or whichever.
There's a gaggle of kids walking across the crosswalk, you can't get it up the hill to whatever.
But we also wanted to do the flip side of that, because some kids are not fun to get up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was the case, and hey, you've already used your 3 Bs, I'm not writing you a note, you're gonna have to suffer the consequence.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we wanted to,
Throw back on the parent a little bit as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and the student, say, well, I know, look, I'm 17 years old, I'm on the basketball team, I have to get my butt out of bed and
I know
get to
my
school.
son is like, Mom, I can't be late, like, let's go.
Yeah,
Like,
don't
he's on it
tell them we
all
even
the time.
talked about this.
That is not my 17-year-old. She walks in 1 minute late every day.
So I guess we're looking for a recommendation as whether to, it sounds like option one of status quo is off the table.
Yeah.
So is it 8:51 or 10:19?
I don't care,
You don't care?
either one.
What do you think?
They're gonna go over, won't you?
I mean, you just never know.
Well, you're right.
You just never know. I would give them till 10:19 just because if something's going on, they go to the doctor, they go, whatever. They just need to get there. And at least you gave them through first period into second period to get there. I'm good with either choice. I'm glad it's not a minute past, because I think that's a little extreme to do that. I'm good with either choice of at least, by the end of first period or second period. I would say go to 10:18. I'm a pushover, however, so.
Give your opinion.
Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay with the second period.
10:19? Ella?
10:19, or I have no preference for them.
Well, we don't have kids in school, so we don't care.
She might have to get Johnny to school.
I do.
I think 10:19 is, the more and more I thought about it, I was pretty much 8:51, but I can go with that.
Aaron, what do you feel as the administrator?
I mean, I definitely want to give students some grace because anybody could have a morning and things happen. So I just want to clarify, so whichever we decide, it's kind of unlimited lates with parent notes, correct?
Well,
It's the 3 unexcused
Yes.
that are,
Yeah,
okay,
those are bad,
okay.
yeah.
as long as they have a note.
As long as they have a note, they can be,
Yeah,
But a
Because
Billy's
they might be at a
signature
doctor's
looks a lot
appointment
like
or
mom's
whatever.
signature that you might
exactly.
want.
yeah, we'll check those signatures.
That's my sister did.
I mean,
She's watching.
if I was choosing, I would love to have, by the end of first period, especially if a student can be later than that with a parent note, because that would allow for doctor's appointments and things like that. But I want to say, in general, our athletes are the students who do come to school on time for the
We don't
most
have a
part.
big problem.
We don't
with
have a
that
huge
anymore,
problem with
so.
our athletes missing classes. So.
Is this something we can vote on right now, or?
No, I think it's because we'll have to write it up and probably should make a resolution since you've already, because you've already approved the student code of conduct, you've already approved the athletic code of conduct, so it would be a change in those documents, so we can write it up and then you can vote on it next.
First, it would probably have to be put into,
As a
like, we'll have to make a new code of conduct and then you have to reapprove the full
Yeah.
code of conduct,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
So the second thing that is a sticky situation is the parents sign out for away games. So the current policy says parents cannot sign out a student from an away game. States that all athletes are expected to travel to and from athletic contests with their teammates on the school bus. Only during extenuating circumstances will exceptions be made. Requests for such exceptions must be submitted in writing to the director of athletics 24 hours prior to the athletic contest. And we said riding the bus together equals team bonding, which I don't disagree with at all. Maybe hard to tell a parent that they cannot take their own child. Also, that is difficult. Discuss, for some people, discuss changing, send in a note the morning of the event, and we discussed changing to remove the extenuating circumstances and utilize something more along the lines of legal excuse, parent note, valid reason, or something to that effect. And then Caitlin is gonna look into what some other schools, what their policy is. So we really don't need to discuss it, but I would like to wait for that until we see what the other schools are doing.
And I'll share that with you in my board updates and the options that Caitlin gives us, and then we can do that. But we are clear that, any pending changes would not take effect until board approval.
Yes.
Okay, so, yes, we've discussed it, we've come to consensus that we're gonna change it, but until the student code of conduct changes.
Does
it's
anybody
status
have anything that they wanted to add to that, or Tim, you got any?
Really encourage those kids to get here on time then.
No, I mean basically you have an away game in
Yeah, I like
Troy.
the bus ride
And-
home, I like,
Yeah,
you know, the hikeness, the
I
togetherness,
mean,
you're together.
I've always been, you take the bus there, you take the bus back.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are circumstances, extenuating circumstances, that I just think we need to get a little more, I think the verbiage needs to be a little more clear on that. You know, if it's a family emergency, or, you know, somebody says, hey, look, my whole family lives in Troy, we were gonna go rob a liquor store later. Can Billy ride with me?
I think, I think the word extenuating was the biggest talking point in our meeting, because it makes it sound like there's an emergency. So we wanted to give a little more flexibility to that, but ultimately, it will be the athletic director's decision to say what's valid and what's not. But at least it gives them more flexibility than extenuating, because extenuating really sounds like once in a lifetime deal or some type of family event that's tragic.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Yes.
Sorry. Usually I don't get it.
okay, Superintendent, anything else to your report?
No, I am all set.
Okay, Aaron, you're up next.
All right. I'd like to report that our monthly positivity project assemblies at the elementary level are continuing. Last week, we had a special guest, Fort Edward alum and author Eileen Doyon came, and she was our speaker at our elementary positivity project assembly. News Channel 6 even came to cover the event. So we were on their website, and we are under the impression that they are going to do a little, broadcast news story about it, but it wasn't a pressing issue, so it didn't make the news that evening. But yeah, we were on their website, so that was pretty great. Yeah. We had our first quarterly P2 assembly for junior senior high. We recognized all of our honor roll students, high honor roll, and honorable mention students, and our students who exhibited good character and who were nominated by 3 teachers as a Positivity Project Student of the Quarter. We also announced our first semester incentive, which is pretty exciting. We have a special secret event happening on February 16th for students who only miss 2 days of school from December 1st until February and have no disciplinary referrals. We're doing a no-cost secret event. We want the kids, they're kind of engrossed. They're kind of asking, what's it going to be? And you tell us what you think it is. We know what it is, but we're not letting the cat out of the bag yet. But it'll be here in the building. They know that, and they know it's going to, again, by invite only if they've had good attendance and no disciplinary referrals. People are pretty excited about that. Our chorus concert is tomorrow, elementary and junior senior high. And our band concert is next Tuesday. So we're doing all the singing tomorrow and all the instruments next week. Attendance, since day one, we are at 92.7% attendance. All grades are still at 90% or higher attendance. And we have 5 grades currently who are at 95% attendance or better for the year. So that's actually gotten better. Last month when I reported, we had 3 that were there, but now we've got 5 that are 95% attendance or better. Next week, I'm expecting tons of attendance. We've got Spirit Week, and that always brings kids out of the woodwork. We've got Ugly Sweater Day, Santa's Workshop Day, Winter Whiteout, and a holiday PJ Day. So thanks to our cheer squad for organizing that. PTO is generously doing milk and cookies with Santa during Spirit Week, so that will be super fun. We were just talking about the details of that, so our kids will be looking forward to that. The data presentation I did last month, I'm still working with Amanda Bergen to get a clearer picture. So next month we should have that information all together. I'm looking at our scores compared to other districts our size. Our transiency compared with other districts, transiency rates, and look at the scores of our students who we've owned the entire time through Fort Edward. So those requests were not ignored. I should have that information next month. I'm currently working with BOCES to explore a new math series, grades pre-K through 6. They've got a great new curriculum person who is going to be leading us through kind of a selection and vetting process to look at some more math curriculum. And 2 things professional development wise. We had Rosanna Finn here from Waite House to come talk to our junior, senior high faculty about the services Waite House provides and how to recognize the signs of homelessness and how to support students who may be in that situation. And that was pretty eye-opening for a lot of our staff. And our pupil personnel services meeting, we hosted Catholic Charities to talk about SNAP, which is basically food stamps. They have this great kind of grassroots program where they will actually go to people's houses and help them get qualified for SNAP. A lot of outreach. So we are going to have them table here at Operation Santa Claus. And we're putting their information on the website and in the backpacks of our students who participate in the backpack program.
Awesome.
That's what I've got.
Thank you. Great.
Very nice.
Do we have a pupil services report?
I don't.
No.
I didn't.
I thought she shared it with you. Maybe not.
If she did, I don't have access to it.
Okay. She didn't share it with me. So.
Okay, you're up for building maintenance.
Yay. I didn't even say anything yet.
It's just your aura.
Yeah, yeah. It's been kind of challenging this past month here since we last talked. But I think we're making a lot of good ground on a lot of different areas. I'm trying to, there's like 3 different areas within the school that we have electrical issues. We haven't had things up and running for a long time. And so I've been investigating stuff and trying to trace and trying to figure out why I don't have certain things with no power in the building. And you know, even though the breakers are on and everything's fine, we see all that. But I'm going to be working with Brownell to try to investigate and try to trace a few areas here. Matter of fact, that'll happen tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock. I'm going to be working with him, trying to get a couple of areas set. I feel if we can get these areas set, that it's going to be a great improvement on the whole building, because some of them are huge. And I'm also working with Stark Tech on some control issues and stuff that they haven't been working in a long time. You know, some of these univents, because I said, is this something that just, these things have been not working properly for a long time. And Rich has even commented that he's gone down through some of the, you know, walked around, go in some of the rooms, see people, and notice that temperatures seem to be doing a lot better, you know, than where, you know, our towering inferno or freezing. So I think I'm gaining some ground here and there with some of these issues. I want to keep the kids comfortable in a good learning environment on my part to make sure that they're not, you know, not freezing or not hot, and keeping everybody comfortable. I'm working right now on the DLL room. You heard them say that they're gonna be revamping that room. Well, there's been issues in that room for a long time with the univent in there. So I'm gonna get with Tetra Tech, the engineer, and take a look at the way that unit is set up in the room and see exactly because some things just don't make sense in that room, and why temperature can't be regulated better. with the computers in there, now with the upgrade, everything needs to come together in that room to improve the learning environment there and everything else. So I'm working on that. I went to a class a while back, and I've learned a lot in the class. It was on boilers and electrical, and learning a lot of different things, seeing how we got a very high-tech boiler now, and state of the art. I've learned a lot, and I'm trying to monitor what's going on down there a lot better. Before it was like they're running, I see smoke coming out of the stacks, we're good. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. You wanna keep a track of what your temperatures are running, what your pressures are running, to make sure all the boilers are working properly. And today I found out one of them wasn't working properly, and it ended up I had to get Trojan in here, and it was a warranty issue. So how long would that have gone on if we weren't staying on top of stuff like that, you know? So it's just a great thing to start keeping track of and keeping those guys really good down there. Trying to get a handle on the cleaning. We had one guy, he left our building, and so now we're left to try to scramble around every day to make sure all the areas are getting cleaned. So we're pulling guys from different areas to attack that area. So we're working on trying to get somebody in here to fill the positions and to get the building on an even track as far as the cleaning and upkeep of the building. I'm working right now with Greenwood Roof Services. We got a lot of areas that got a lot of leaks in areas. I mean, you look at the ceiling tiles, you'll see them when you're walking around. Some of these, talking with Ken Chester, who was the guy way back before Craig Maston and all of them, I've been in touch with him on stuff, and he's telling me what dates the roofs are and that they're probably still under warranty. So Firestone, I'm working with Greenwood Roof Services, who is one of the distributors for Firestone Roofing, is checking into so we can maybe get some money, have some things fixed without any cost under warranty. So I'm working on that right now to try to get that set. That's it. That's what I've been working on and trying to get set, along with the everyday occurrences of today. We had a teacher locked in the teacher's lounge bathroom, and going hysterics in there. And I said, "Did you try turning the deadbolt?" She said, "Yeah," after I realized that all I had to do was flick the switch over and you could open the door. There's little issues like that go on every day. That's an everyday occurrence.
Put instructions on there?
Yeah, I did. I put a little note there, and it says turn, and with an arrow, and all you gotta do is go like that, and the door opens up. It's amazing.
It's in lock themselves installed.
Well, every time Steve does a report, you know, he sometimes neglects to pat himself a little harder on the back. He does a great job. And when he's talking about the electrical, like, I just want to give you one example. So we're trying, if you ever come into the main office, you have to wait, sometimes you have to wait in the vestibule area. Well, there's a big heater up there that doesn't work. And at one point we were told you have to replace that, which would have been a cost of probably about $28,000. So Steve went up there with another guy, and he's like, "There's heat here. For some reason, this fan isn't operating," and then he traced all the electrical, and for some reason, it's not getting power. So now he's bringing Brownell in, and if, say, that fixes $1,000, $2,000, we just saved a ton of money. So these are the little things that Steve does that really go unnoticed, that have huge impacts and huge ripple effects on what our operations are and finances and things like that. So I'll say it every time, I just can't thank him enough for being here and all the work he does. He's had a tremendous impact in the short time he's here, so thank you.
Thank you. Love being here, love being here. You want the hat off, I know.
Okay, we have one discussion item, the tax exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers.
So, we talked about it a little bit in finance, but I'm gonna turn it over to Chris. This is something that we have to vote on very soon, make a decision on soon, because obviously we'll be voting in May on the budget, and I believe there's a slight impact on the budget. So, the brass tacks of it is, do we approve a tax exemption for our volunteer firefighters, or do we not? So, but the impact is, go ahead, Chris.
So I passed all these sheets, I'm hoping you guys still have them in front of you. Last spring when I reached out to the firefighters, they did have 35 eligible exemptions. So depending on if you grant an exemption, it could be up to 10%. They did a 5%, I kind of have a percentage of a 5% and a 10% based on a $100,000 assessment and a $150,000 assessment. We're talking with those 35 exemptions at 5%. For the 100,000, it's 3,200. And with a $150,000 exemption, it would be assessment. It would be $4,824. 10%, obviously, I presented those as well. It could be up to about $10,000, depending on what you guys have approved. What it will do is the tax levy will stay the same. The taxes that then get distributed would be now on the base of the taxpayers. So if you give these exemptions out, firefighters would have a reduced part of their taxes, and then the rest would be covered by the base.
So how much would it increase the other residents' taxes?
Well, depending on how many pay taxes, you could talk, 20, 30, maybe $50 for your taxes.
So when you say, I'm sorry.
No, I was thinking that's very little considering that you have men or women that volunteer their services for the community on top of their normal work and everyday lives. I think that that's very little price to pay to do something like that.
So when you said 35 eligible people.
Yeah.
Are we talking 2 years or the 5-year point? Are they eligible?
That was under, when they looked at it from the fire chief's perspective, it was everybody who met the requirements under that snapshot. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, it's either 2 years or requirement of 2 to 5 years.
You guys can set the parameters, I believe, as well. So it could be the 2 years, or you say 5 years, then they can then readjust. The people under the eligibility was, I think, on the 2 year.
Okay. And then that is updated on an annual basis by the fire department?
I believe that's what it is, yeah. So they can then get the eligibility for this exemption.
So these are all people who are actual homeowners?
Correct, they're homeowners and within district, within the village.
Okay. So they pay taxes on
Correct.
everything?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, if this is something you guys move forward, we actually get the legitimate, who is the eligible people now. But the tax distribution is based on those 35, or whatever percentage that you guys are deciding to go with.
And it's up to 10%?
It's up to 10%, correct.
Okay. So you don't have to vote on 10% or 5%, you could vote on 3 or 7, right?
Right. So is there any other, I don't think that Fort Edward has a non-firematic position anymore. So anybody that's in the fire department is gonna be a firematic, volunteer firefighter. I don't know about the ambulance service, not familiar with that. But I would definitely say that, anybody under like that 20-year mark. There's plenty of people there that are life members, and they, rightly so, they've paid their dues. You know, they're not running into a burning bill, because I sure as heck wasn't when I was there. So, we actually talked about this last year, but it was too late. They gave it to us too late.
Correct.
You were here.
It was a day after it was
Yeah.
due, correct.
Do you know when it is due?
I think it's March 1st.
So-
We received it March 2nd, so it was the day after, and the assessor received it the same day as well.
We have to have a separate meeting, right? Public meeting. Or no? The hearing and the passage of the resolution must be done in a separate meeting. School districts must first hold a public hearing on the matter. Right?
Could be on the same calendar date instead though, right? It could be the same calendar date, those two meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, because you could open it up to this, then close it, and then open it up to the regular meeting to actually pass or not pass the resolution.
Does anybody feel really strongly one way or the other?
I don't have a problem with it, because
I don't have a problem.
I think
Sarah,
it's
like
small
Sarah
price
said,
to
you know, these
pay.
guys are,
I mean, and they don't just do fire, I mean.
they do a lot of
it's-
stuff,
it's
you
a
know,
lot
there's,
of
there's a
stuff.
lot of things, they do a lot for the community.
Yeah.
You know, but in general, they're putting their life on the line for absolutely,
Yeah.
no financial, they're not gonna pay at all, so, you know, they have jobs, they're up late at night, they respond at a moment's notice. I was with the volunteer fire department for a very short amount of time, but I can tell you this, there's some hardworking people, so I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's certainly worth discussing.
They're very deserving of it.
Would it be more beneficial to have, instead of just 5 and 10 in there, would you like the other percentages in there? No, I'm just asking.
Well, how I came up with it, just so you guys also know, it's $18 basically for every $1,000 of your house. So for every $1,000 your house is worth, it's $18 would be that part of that calculation. So then take the 35 that's eligible, multiply it by the 5% of that, so it would be 18 for every 1,000, and that's how you were able to then calculate the whatever assessment your house is. The hard part is I don't know what each person's house is assessed, so the variability is so high.
So that would be the additional,
Correct. I mean, if somebody has a $300,000 house and they're at $18 for every 1,000, then that's the savings, or that's what their assessment would be worth. Then you take 5% of that. But again, it's a variability that's out there.
Do we have any idea what the villas in the town are doing?
I know other school districts are talking about this. They were talking about, you know, I think where their concern is could anybody be on the fire department that's not really serving? And my understanding is that's not the case here in Fort Edward. Those who are truly on it
they're all firemen.
They're all serving, yeah. So other districts concerned where there's people that kind of like just jump in. I think you can also set how many years of service. So if you're kind of like, well, after 2 years, if you guys want to make it a 5-year commitment where, so it depends on what you guys set as your parameters, that you guys set it as the board.
I think the closest one would be, to us, would be like Kingsbury or even Hudson Falls.
Yeah.
But if Kingsbury has, they're with Hudson Falls school tax wise, so, you know, I'd be curious to see what they had.
Like, doesn't the village of Fort Edward have to make this decision as well, and the town of Fort Edward? Like, it's not just school districts, it's all taxing districts,
I think
they're all taxing
that's
municipalities.
right.
I think it
We
is.
allow all taxing authorities.
Yeah.
Okay,
That'd be a good question.
so would it make sense to be equivalent across, I don't know,
Yeah.
would it make sense to be equivalent discount across all jurisdictions that you reside in, or it probably doesn't matter?
I think we should be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, if the village is
We
open
don't
to
wanna-
it, then, you know, I don't know.
I like where you're going. I think it's worth a question.
Yeah,
So, all right.
So reach out to the village.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
village
And the
and
town.
town, yeah.
we can bring more information to January.
Yeah, but we're open to,
I don't know, but
I think we're open to
open.
doing that, right?
Yeah, I think so. If you live in the village,
Do I pay village tax?
you pay village tax.
Do I? It comes out of my mortgage, I don't know.
There's Village County,
But we don't, the town is just,
I don't think.
No,
it's
not
village
a-
tax.
we
I
don't
think
pay a
it's
tax, we
village
pay for
and
services.
town.
water and sewer and something else, Ellie, I don't know. But we don't pay property tax for the town, we pay property tax in the village. So the members would, I mean, believe you have to, it's still the same, you have to be a village resident.
That was my understanding, the 35 were in
Yeah.
village.
Oh, yeah, right, because that's our, yeah, that's.
So it just
It's
be
your
the
tax
village.
base here, correct.
So the town wouldn't have any bearing
Yep.
on that.
So just the village.
So you just want the village, because the town, yeah, okay.
Makes sense.
I can reach out to the village and see what they're, and you want a consistent parameter, so whatever they kind of are steering you guys.
Yeah, that way we're
all on the
Just
same
agreement on the
page.
taxes would be the
Yeah.
same, okay, makes sense.
It's a good call.
Ready?
We're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, next is consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve A through G?
Motion.
John? Audra? All in favor?
Aye.
Action items? Can we do them all?
You can do whichever you want, you need.
A through I? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that
John,
motion.
Audra? All in favor?
Aye.
Before you move on to that, just want to make sure. No, not yet. Go ahead, sorry.
Any questions? Any discussion? This is-
That's it.
Okay, designations is next. We have quite a few appointments here. Can I have a motion to approve A through B?
A through,
Well, hold on, designations, we're gonna
Designations,
appoint Bradley
okay.
West.
I'm sorry, what is?
designation on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Designation A.
Do I have a motion for designation A, appoint Bradley West to CPSC chairperson?
I'll make a motion.
Audra, Sarah? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now personnel.
Yeah.
Can I have a motion to accept A through V?
Motion?
Tim,
One second.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Joyce Long for her 18 months of service to the students here in our district, and I wish her well. It's a little bit bittersweet, but I wish her well over in Monson. She did some great things here at Fort Edward that won't be forgotten. And, you know, it's bittersweet because I was telling Aaron, it feels like the band's breaking up a little bit, but we'll move forward, and we wish Joyce well. So thank you, Joyce Long, for your service.
Certainly do wish her well.
Okay, coaching. We have accept the letter of resignation from Catherine Prisco as co-JV softball coach effective December 6, 2023.
Motion.
John, make motion? Oh, I'm sorry,
Sarah.
Sarah, second. Yellow, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion, all in favor, okay. Any second public comment period?
Do not.
You sure?
Super Anderson's my name.
So I can make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:26.
I'll make that motion.
John, Sarah,
Together.
all in favor?
Hit the gavel.
Okay.
There we go.
Good job.